Far in the unified heavenly realm, the gods gather to welcome the goddess of healing Ristar, nicknamed Rista, to the spotlight. The host announces that this time Rista must save a world with a threat level of S. With composure, she embraces the divine task, affirming that it will provide valuable experiences, propelling her towards the goal of attaining high-ranking status. However, in reality, Rista is freaking out since she has only saved 5 worlds with low-level threats. On the other hand, almost every god has saved more than 10 worlds, while the high-ranking gods had hundreds of worlds under their belt. However, the worst part is that even the high-ranking gods keep their hands away from S-level threats. Anyhow, she must choose a hero from Earth that will lead the new world into salvation. Luckily, the people from Japan are used to the whole ice sky thing, so it's way easier to explain the gig to them. Rista carefully skims through the CV of the candidates, but soon she is confused by the sheer number of applicants. Fatigued, she accidentally falls off her chair. Suddenly, a draft of air makes all the papers fly around the room, and one of them lands on her face. As she goes through the CV, Rista notices the insane skills possessed by the candidate despite being on level 1. She then conjures a magic circle to summon Seiya Ryugaju into the unified heavenly realm. Out of the blue, Rista finds herself utterly charmed by the strapping 6-foot-tall gentleman, rocking noble vibes and a head of dark, dashing hair. But it turns out, Rista's knight in shining armor is an arrogant know-it-all. Moving on, Rista takes charge and explains that gods are restricted by heavenly law, so meddling in human affairs is impossible. Long story short, she tells Seiya that he must save the Gibran world whether he likes it or not. Rista then creates a portal to Gibran in order to begin their new journey, but Seiya simply ignores her. According to him, going into a fight without complete preparation is a rookie mistake. And then, like a piano dropping from the sky, it dawned on Rista. She had completely missed the memo that Seiya is the living embodiment of handle with caution. Disappointed, Rista visits Arya, the goddess of Sealed. She advises Rista to take things slow and to avoid using her godly authorities on the new hero. After a week of continuous training, Seiya finally calls Rista, stating that he is ready to begin his hero journey, although he would have preferred to max out his stats first. After entering the new world, they visit a nearby town to buy a set of armor and weapons, a classic start to an ice guy. In the blacksmith's shop, Seiya goes on a shopping spree, grabbing not 1, not 2, but 3 armor sets. Fortunately, Rista intervenes before he could blow up all of his money on his armor fetish. Geared up for his adventure, Seiya goes to the outskirts of town where he finds slimes, low-level monsters in every game, but for some reason he has no knowledge about them. Anyhow, Seiya uses his special attack Atomic Slash to incinerate the slime, and then casts his special magic Hellfire just in case. Even it doesn't satisfy the cautious hero, so he repeats the process once again while Rista yells at him for being an overkill. Furthermore, she advises Seiya to use his scan ability. Little did she know that Seiya already had scanned the slime. Its offense and defense were both in the single digits. However, according to Seiya, one must always keep their guard up. Suddenly, atmosphere changes as Chaos Machina, one of Heavenly Kings serving under the Demon King, arrives to welcome the new hero. She reveals that the Demon King sensed the summoning of the hero, while she predicted that Seiya would begin his journey by slaying low-level monsters. This makes Rista realize that her prior experience is null when it comes to level S worlds. Seiya scans Chaos Machina only to discover that she is a level 6-6 demon. Seeing her stats, he instantly makes the run for it. While running for their lives, Seiya tells Rista to create a portal back to the unified whatever realm, but Chaos Machina is right behind them. She captures Rista right before they were about to enter the portal. Fortunately, Seiya casts Hell's Fire to distract Machina and rescue Rista. Now back in the unified heavenly realm, Seiya literally slaps Rista out of her own house in order to train for the upcoming fight. As 2 days pass by, Rista grows impatient, so she fires up a broadcast crystal given to her by Arya. To her utter shock, Chaos Machina senses her presence, revealing that the town is under her control and she will kill one person every 10 minutes unless Seiya and Rista show up. Fearful, Rista rushes over to her house, explaining the events transpiring in the other world. However, Seiya remains unfazed by her revelation and continues his training without a pause. Tearfully full of regret, Rista decides to leave the room, and that's when Seiya replies that his death would mean the end of Gibran, so to avoid this outcome he must train diligently. Rista scans Seiya and learns that he has reached level 21, which is more than enough to fight with Chaos Machina. Determined, Rista and Seiya head back to the Gibran, where Chaos Machina is growing impatient. Seiya sneaks up on her using a new long-range skill called Wind Blade. Despite a powerful attack, Chaos Machina dodges it effortlessly, displaying her true might. She then uses a mysterious ability, increasing her strength tenfold. As the battle commences, Chaos Machina goes on the offensive. She constantly attacks Seiya, but he parries each of her strikes. Cornered, she activates an ability known as the Demon Curse and willingly stabs herself in the guts to transform into her true form. With upgraded stats, she launches an aerial attack on Seiya. On the sidelines, Rista is terrified of Chaos Machina's true power, but to her utter shock, Seiya effortlessly blocks her attack. All of a sudden, Rista figures out that he's been tricking everyone with the fake-out skill. After a bunch of hard tries, Rista finally breaks free from the trickery and finds out that Seiya is at level 37. Seiya then takes flight and with his Phoenix Drive shatters Chaos Machina into pieces. As the fight ends, all of the town's locals gather around Seiya and Rista, showering them with words of praise. However, Seiya has no time for fun and games. He gathers all the remains of Chaos Machina to purify them with Hell's Fire, and to finish it off he casts Maximum Inferno. However, it results in destruction of town, prompting people to kick them out. After walking a while, Seiya asks Rista to create a portal back to the unified heavenly realm so he could continue his training for the upcoming fight. After getting back to the unified divine realm, Seiya continues his relentless training for days while Rista travels to Aria's place. There, she sulks over Seiya's cautious attitude, stating that she wants to take control of Gibran and be like Aria. Saddened, Aria explains that she couldn't save a world with a threat level B due to a single miscalculation. As their conversation continues, Seiya interrupts abruptly, sharing his concern that he has hit a power ceiling he can't seem to break through. Rista, patiently waiting for this moment, suggests that Seiya should gain some practical experience in Gibran to potentially enhance his stats further. However, Seiya, maintaining his characteristic smugness, flatly declines the proposal. In that moment, Aria proposes that Seiya should train with one of the fellow gods, which is a backdoor loophole she created. A while later, Aria introduces Seiya to the divine blade god named Catious. After a bit of trash talk from both sides, their training begins. Within few moments, Catious is impressed by Seiya since he is able to hold himself against a god for a few seconds. The next day, Rista heads to the cafeteria where she runs into Catious, who reveals that their training is going pretty well, though Seiya is no match for his true strength. On second day of training, Rista coincidentally encounters Catious in the cafeteria. Surprisingly, he is frustrated by Seiya's progression and softly reveals how Seiya has surpassed him in overall combat ability. A few days later, Catious reaches his breaking point, worn down by the relentless training Seiya has been subjecting him to. In a moment of frustration and exhaustion, Catious decides to cast aside his sword, yearning for a much-needed break from the rigorous training routine. On the other hand, Rista visits Ishur only to discover that Catious was once a human swordsman, but all of his memories were wiped out when he became a god. Apparently, all those human emotions are etched deep within his soul. Anyhow, the real reason she called Rista was to inform her about the next town. Turns out in next town, Seiya will meet up with allies, so he must immediately travel there. Committed, Rista heads to the training ground, where Seiya is using Catious as punching bag. No wonder the guy broke down. She then accompanies Seiya to the next town, where they discover that an army of undead is approaching the city. Inside the town, they visit a local shop, where Seiya buys a bunch of holy water. Fully geared up, the duo enters the local church to meet with their friends. At the church, Seiya gets introduced to two dragon Kinmash and Alulu. Seiya, being true to his cautious nature, pours holy water on the priest's head, revealing its true identity. In that instant, he cuts off all the limbs of the undead, but that doesn't keep him from blabbering. Frustrated, Seiya decides to be extra thorough with his cleanup and casts Maximum Inferno to cremate the undead. After blowing up the church, Seiya pours holy water on Mash, Alulu, and the nun. Fortunately, all of them turn out to be humans. Seiya then takes a quick peek at their stats, deciding that they are useless to him. Angered, Mash attempts to disclose his standing as his village's esteemed hero, while Lulu comes to his defense, stating that they have been grinding day and night, diligently increasing their level. Although their story is really touchy, it's still a hard pass from Seiya. As they argue, the Empire's forces arrive on the scene. Initially, both Seiya and the goddess find themselves under suspicion for the church's destruction. However, the situation takes a turn for the better when the nun regains consciousness. She calmly recounts the entire story, including the presence of the undead forces. Moreover, she informs the knights about an impending threat, an army of 10,000 undead marching towards their city. Fortunately, the goddess and hero Seiya are on hand to assist in this critical moment. The knights, realizing their earlier mistakes, kneel and seek the hero's help in this critical situation. However, Seiya's practical nature becomes evident as he asks for 1,000 gold coins as compensation for his assistance. Unfortunately, the knight's captain doesn't have the authority to promise such a reward, which disappoints Seiya. In the end, Seiya decides to step away, seemingly leaving their fate to chance. However, in reality, his intention is to protect Mash and the others from unnecessary conflict. Seiya then uses his full-throttle flight mode to reach the battlefield in time and witnesses thousands of undead soldiers walking side by side, displaying the power of the Demon King. Seiya, though impressed by their determination, deems 10,000 soldiers no real threat to him. With swift precision, he casts a new spell, the Meteor Strike. While the meteor he conjures is relatively small, that possesses enough destructive force to end any potential conflict. Always cautious to the extreme, Seiya deploys a second Meteor Strike, effectively putting an end to the war before it could begin. As the smoke settles, Rista and Seiya travel back to their inn, where Lulu frantically arrives, explaining that Mash has gone missing after being insulted by the Mihen hero. As she continues to explain, Seiya interrupts them, revealing his platinum sword, which he crafted himself using the synthesis skill. For the materials, he used a normal sword and Rista divine hair. While he continues to brag, a strange mirror is delivered to their room. Out of nowhere, the mirror displays Mash being held hostage by Deathmagla, one of the 4 heavenly generals under the Demon King. He confesses his shock upon witnessing his army of thousands obliterated in an instant. Nevertheless, he now vows to exact revenge on the diminutive Mash. Infuriated, Seiya draws his sword and swiftly uses his dimensional blade to slice off one of Deathmagla's hands. Immediately after, they return to the unified heavenly realm, where Seiya tells Rista that they have 15 minutes to find a way to infiltrate the enemy's domain, or else Mash will meet his end. Hearing this, Rista proposes that they should turn to Ishtar for help. Seiya smugly addresses her as Granny, and in the same tone, asks her to create a portal to Deathmagla's hideout in order to save Mashed Potato. As they exit the portal, Seiya immediately casts Hell's Fire to throw off Deathmagla, while Rista uses this opportunity to rescue Mash. Afterwards, Deathmagla summons his special undead immune to sword attacks. He reveals that the only way to defeat his undead is through melee attacks or ice magic. Seiya appreciates the boss walkthrough, and with his new synthesized ice amulet, freezes the undead. He then uses his phoenix drive to shatter the undead into tiny pieces and calmly walks closer to Deathmagla to teach him a few lessons about death. On the morrow, Mash wakes up in the inn alongside Lulu and the others. He displays his gratitude towards Seiya for saving him from the Deathmagla. As they continue talking, Lulu reveals that they must destroy the seal on the dragon's den, which will lead Seiya to obtain a legendary weapon. With determination, Rista tries to convince Seiya that infiltrating the dragon's den is a worthwhile idea. Seiya, however, confidently dismisses her proposal, flexing his 3 platinum swords. After a brief thought, Seiya decides to take Mash and Lulu back to the unified heavenly realm to boost their stats. In the unified realm, they travel to the cafeteria only to discover that the Divine Blade has retired from the sword gig and is now working as a full-time maid. Seeing his sorry state, Seiya discloses that Catious will train Mash while Lulu will be training with the goddess of fire Hestiaka. Now all that is left is for Seiya to find himself a monster trainer. While walking, Rista mistakenly bumps into the goddess of destruction Valkyrie. Seiya suddenly becomes excited upon sensing the powerful aura emanating from Valkyrie. In a playful manner, he mocks Valkyrie for her revealing attire, which briefly leads to a heated exchange. Thankfully, Arya steps in to defuse the situation and guides Seiya to the goddess of war for a training session that will span the next few days. A while later, Seiya and the others travel back to Gibrand. While en route to the dragon's den, a swarm of monsters makes multiple attempts to attack Seiya and the others. Mash and Lulu take up arms, eager to join the fight, but before they can react, Seiya is already one step ahead. He activates his automatic Phoenix skill, swiftly dispatching any monsters under level 30 within a 50-meter radius. A while later, Seiya and the others climb the legendary mountain in search of the dragon's den. Out of nowhere, Mash and Lulu's hands begin to glow, indicating that they are close to the cave. After a lot of walking, the group finally enters the cave, where they are met with an unbreakable seal. Mash and Lulu get ready to break the seal, but once again Seiya takes the initiative all by himself. He uses his eternal sword to swiftly slice through the seal. Inside the cave, they encounter a magic circle which transports them to another continent. There, they meet with Levi, the mother of dragons. She helps Mash unlock his dragon transformation, boosting his stats by tenfold. She then reveals that Lulu will transform into the mightiest of weapons, but the catch is that she must sacrifice her life. Frustrated, Mash tries to question the queen, but all of his pleas are dismissed when the queen reveals that 70% of the world has been conquered by the Demon King, while the rest of it isn't safe haven either. Furthermore, sacrificing one's own life for the sake of humanity is an honor that every dragonkin wishes to obtain. Before leaving the palace, the queen discloses that the sacred ceremony will begin at night. Despairing, Lulu accepts her own destiny, but Mash refuses to accept this outcome, while Rista realizes the seriousness of their situation. Everyone is conflicted inside, but Seiya, a heartless jerk, is going on a shopping spree. While buying speed boost seeds, he tells Rista that everyone has to accept their own responsibilities in the world. Hearing this breaks Lulu to core, causing her to leave. At night, the banquet before the ceremony begins. Citizens of the town celebrate as their fierce dragonkin is about to become a scared sword. As the night grows young, the mother of dragons announces the commencement of the ceremony. Just then, Alulu enters the spotlight, ready to sacrifice herself for the greater good. On the sidelines, Mash begins having second thoughts and attempts to rescue Alulu from the whole ordeal, but is helpless when faced with powerful foes. In the end, Seiya is forced to take action, since Alulu is his personal luggage handler. As he defeats the dragonkin with ease, Mash and Rista get paralyzed. Turns out that the food they ate earlier had paralytic chemicals in it. Little did the queen know that Seiya spewed out all the food he ate, rendering the poison ineffective on him. As a last resort, Levi decides to kill the hero on her own accord and transforms into a great dragon god using their special technique, gaining unimaginable defense and offense. In response to her transformation, Seiya takes out a Dragon Slayer sword which he made himself using synthesis. The Dragon Slayer surprises the queen, but her defense still stands tall. To make matters worse, she places a curse on little Lulu, and if left alone, the curse would kill her in the next few minutes. The queen acknowledges the immense power held by Seiya, and to counter his offensive powers, she activates her golden scales, increasing her defense even more. Being the paranoid hero, Seiya reveals another Dragon Slayer sword which was meant to be used as a spare. Nonetheless, the dual swords allow Seiya to launch an unimaginable Eternal Sword combo, dealing a lot of damage to the queen. He then uses dual wind blades to send the queen into the Dragon Abyss. As things settle, a sword comes flying out of the abyss. Apparently, the old hag was speaking the truth regarding the sacred sword. Seiya accepts the swords and assures the people that their queen has made a noteworthy sacrifice, so it's a win-win situation for all of them. After returning to the cave, Rista secretly confronts Seiya regarding the sacred sword. Based on her evaluation, it becomes evident that the new sword lacks the sacred power Seiya had previously claimed. This revelation prompts Seiya to be honest about the situation. He admits that he will need to find an alternative method to defeat the Demon King. As they exit the dragon's den, Seiya and the others are greeted by a platoon of Roseguard knights. They reveal that their combined forces are engaged in battle with Beelzebub, one of the 4 heavenly generals. The knights offer to escort Seiya to the battlefield. Irritated by their incompetence, Seiya goes airborne and flies towards the battlefield. There, Seiya discovers that all of Beelzebub's minions are above level 30, which means that his automatic Phoenix skill is out of option. Moments later, Beelzebub orders his minions to initiate a special ceremony, the Reverse Fireworks. Several demon flies capture various soldiers from the battlefield just to drop them from a significant height. Although it's a horrific scene, Seiya's cautious personality forces him to stand silent. As the commotion ends, Seiya and the others introduce themselves to the captain of the Rose Guards, Rosalie. Apparently, she is the daughter of the War Master, the strongest warrior in Gibrand. A while later, Seiya travels to the Roseguard Fortress for an official meeting with Rosalie and her war counselors. As the meeting begins, Seiya mentions there might be possibilities of intrusion. Hearing this, Rosalie orders the soldiers to search the entire fortress. Upon further investigation, the soldiers report back to Rosalie, revealing that nothing was found. Frustrated, Rosalie tells the war councils that she will infiltrate Beelzebub's lair alongside Seiya. As she continues to explain, Seiya informs Rosalie that he will go back to the unified heavenly realm for training. As they continue talking, Rosalie discovers that Seiya quietly enjoyed the show while her men were being slaughtered on the battlefield. She questions the authenticity of the hero and his resolve. Annoyed, he reminds Rosalie that the army was her responsibility, so their death is in her hands. Angered by his comment, she attempts to attack Seiya, but being the Chad male, Seiya slaps the hell out of Rosalie, reminding the captain of her place. Back in the unified heavenly realm, Seiya gets introduced to the god of archery Midas. She displays her mastery of archery by firing 7 simultaneous shots. He then asks Lulu to teach him fire creation magic. In response, she displays a single maneuver, but that is enough for Seiya, as he casts the spell on his own whooping Midas in the process. Rista then visits Aria's house, where Mash and Lulu have been training relentlessly. It appears that Aria has lifted one of Mash's dragon morphosis seals, allowing him to transform a part of his body at will. Aria, recognizing Lulu's potential as a valuable support mage, has been actively broadening her magical skills. She has recently acquired the Delay spell, which can substantially slow down a target, and also mastered Haste, a spell to increase a target's speed. This development surprises Rista, and she suggests that Aria should provide more training sessions to newbies. During tea time, Rista informs Aria that Seiya has been training with Midas, since she is the only god of archery in the divine realm. Hearing this revelation deeply concerns Aria, especially because Midas has a history of being infatuated with enslavement. The reason Ishtar had confined her to the divine forest was because of her past actions involving male heroes. Urgently, Arya advises Rista to head to the Divine Forest immediately to save Seiya from his potential fate. As Rista reaches the forest, she discovers Midas wrapped in ropes, asking Seiya to enslave her body, but the Chad hero is not having it. He directly fires a headshot, displaying his resolve. Angered by his insolence, Midas attempts to capture him, but all of her efforts are in vain as Seiya fires all 5 consecutive shots, pinning her to a tree. After returning to Gibran, Seiya discovers that Rosalie went to confront Beelzebub on her own. Frustrated by Rosalie's childish behavior, Seiya and the others head straight to Beelzebub, where they witness Rosalie challenging the Heavenly King head-on, although the situation is not that bad since Seiya now has the perfect bait. As the situation escalates, Beelzebub captures Rosalie, which ruins Seiya's entire plan. In that instant, he asks Rista to distract Beelzebub while he will create a plan to defeat him. On the battlefield, Beelzebub cautiously soars through the sky to avoid being hit by Seiya's magical arrows while preparing to throw Rosalie with all of his might. Fortunately, in that moment, Seiya intervenes and distracts Beelzebub, allowing Rista to save Rosalie in time. He then fires 7 consecutive shots at Beelzebub. However, all of them are dodged by him. As he gets closer to Seiya, he is attacked by mysterious white birds. It comes to light that Seiya has developed a new skill which can transform the shape of his arrows, allowing them to gain properties of different objects like boomerangs. As the battle comes to an end, Seiya kills the leftover demons with rapid-fire shots. He then orders Lulu to use haste magic on Mash so he can efficiently collect the corpses of the demons. Afterwards, he casts Hell's Fire for the cleanup process. At that moment, Rosalie reveals that there is scared armor waiting for him at a village nearby. Upon reaching the village, Seiya is met with a disheartening sight. He discovers that Kilkapple has already been there and wreaked havoc, leaving the village in ruins and destroying the armor they had come to retrieve. In the end, Kilkapple uses the lives of the villagers as offering to the Great Reaper of Calamity. However, even their sacrifice is not enough, forcing Kilkapple to kill himself, and in doing so he summons the beast that transcends time and space. As the Reaper appears, Seiya and Rista attempt to gaze at his stats, but for some unknown reasons his stats are unreadable. Fearful, Seiya tells Rista to bust out a portal or else they will be killed. In that instance, Seiya uses his dual wind blades to distract the monster, but all of his attacks seem to have no effect. In a state of panic, they get back to the unified heavenly realm, hoping to plan their next move. Seiya and the others take a sigh of relief, but their troubles have just begun since the monster is able to destroy the dimensional barrier separating Gibran and the heavenly realm. Luckily, 3 celebrity gods arrive at the scene, unleashing a combined attack of wind, water, and fire. However, none of it seemed to work against it. In desperation, Seiya draws the monster to Valkyrie's special spot. Frustrated, she unleashes her full divine power to seal the monster inside the gates of Valhalla. After seeing the might of her true powers, Seiya insists Valkyrie teach him the gate of Valhalla. In response, Valkyrie refuses Seiya's unreasonable request, stating that his body and soul would be destroyed. Back in Gibran, Seiya discovers that the knights are fighting the last heavenly king Eraser Kaiser. In great peril, humanity's favorite hero, the War Master, decides to take action. He unleashes a powerful attack, slicing the heavenly king into pieces. Suddenly, and quite surprisingly, the War Master undergoes a transformation, taking on the form of an infant. After this strange incident, Captain Rosalie arrives on the battlefield and nurses the baby like a mother, telling him to behave. She then tells Seiya and the others to meet her at the castle. After a long wait of 2 hours, Seiya officially meets with the War Master's daughter. Firstly, she asks about the sacred armor destined to be worn by the legendary hero. In response, Seiya reveals the fate that befalls the sacred armor. Moving on, Rosalie explains that her father, the War Master, has been serving this country for the last 30 years. A while back, the War Master had plotted to confront and defeat the Demon King. During his journey to the Demon King's castle, he encountered a mysterious adversary who managed to thwart War Master's plans by transforming him into an infant. Later that day, the War Master returns to his former self and meets with Seiya in the throne room, where suddenly a guard comes barging in. The guard reveals that the city is under attack by the leftover demon army. Hearing this, Seiya decides to take action by himself, since the War Master would just slow him down. Meanwhile, the War Master takes Rista to the castle church, where he reveals that the real souls of the gods rest in unified heavenly realm where time is constant, while their souls on Gibran can be called virtual souls. He tells Rista that the Demon King has prepared a weapon which can kill both the hero and the goddess by destroying their real souls. In a sudden twist of events, the War Master reveals himself as an ally of the Demon King. He also unveils a god-slaying sword which gives its wielder the capability to kill gods and heroes. Luckily, Seiya arrives in the nick of time to handle the situation. As their battle commences, Seiya uses his double eternal sword, prompting the War Master to realize the weakness of his frail body. He then eats a strange spirit orb bestowed on him by the Demon King. In that instant, the War Master gains his youth and transforms into a demon. The real fight begins. Both the War Master and Seiya are on equal turf, however soon the tides of battle change as Seiya uses the 9th move of Valkyrie Counter Break. At the end, Seiya uses his Phoenix Thrust, resulting in the defeat of the War Master. On the morrow, Seiya disappears from the castle. Initially, Ristet and the others try to ignore his presence, believing that he is training elsewhere in isolation. Soon, the entire day goes by, and that is when Rista, Mash, and Alulu begin worrying about his circumstances. Frustrated, she barges into Seiya's room only to discover Arya standing by the wind with tears running down her face. Just then, Ishur appears in the room and transports everyone to the chamber where the souls of the gods lay dormant. In the chambers, Ishur reveals that Seiya has gone to fight the Demon King by himself, since the Demon King possesses the god-slaying sword that poses a direct threat to Rista. As they continue talking, Ishur discloses that Seiya had maxed out his stats, and because of this he learned additional skills from Midas and Valkyrie. She further adds that Seiya always wanted to protect the people closest to him, and this is his way of redemption. Confused, Rista asks about the true meaning behind Ishur's words. In response, Arya reveals that she had summoned Seiya once before to take control of a B-class world called Exphoria. At that time, Seiya had a carefree attitude towards everything and used to get into fights without proper training or gear. As their party grew, Seiya teamed up with an esteemed princess of the Empire, and together they marched onto the Demon King's lair. After a long bloody battle, Seiya had finally managed to kill the Demon King, but suddenly the Demon King revived and wiped out everyone. Upon her return to the heavenly realm, Arya made a fervent wish for the princess to experience a new life as a goddess, and her wish brought about the birth of Rista. Ishur then explains that the fear and regret of that tragedy has been etched into Seiya's soul, which is why he acts cautiously. After learning the whole story, Rista chooses to assist Seiya in his fight against the Demon King. Ishur, in response, warns Rista about potential consequences for going beyond her role as a support goddess. As Rista, Mash, and Alulu exit the portal, they find Seiya and the Demon King going head-to-head with each other, but things are not looking good for Seiya, since his weapons seem to be ineffective against the Demon King. In a last-ditch effort, Seiya casts the Gate of Valhalla, a move that comes at the cost of his own soul. Unfortunately, even this mighty spell isn't enough to defeat the Demon King. Determined, Seiya uses the thorns of the Gate of Valhalla alongside Rista's hair to craft a sword and drives it right through the Demon Lord, pushing him inside the Gate of Valhalla. As the commotion ends, Rista commands the heavens to unleash her full power and heal Seiya. However, the situation takes a surprising turn as the Gate of Valhalla remains visible, indicating that the Demon King struggled to break free. Eventually, he succeeds in reopening the gate with the intention of destroying Gyrbrand. Faced with this new crisis, Seiya is forced to cast the Gate of Valhalla once again, causing his body to deteriorate. Just before his form crumbles to pieces, Seiya expresses his satisfaction, knowing that this time he managed to protect Rista. She is subsequently summoned by Ishur to be punished for defying the Divine Realm's laws. She is informed that she will be sent to save an even stronger world where its Demon Lord has already taken over, but without any of her divine healing power. And if she fails, she will be stripped of her divinity. Before Ristar can accept, Ishur reveals that the effects of the chain destruction were lifted when the second Gate of Valhalla was used, meaning all subsequent deaths can be undone. Ristar then receives the note of her hero's information and cries tears of joy when she sees Seiya's name and extremely cautious nature written on it. If you like what you saw, consider subscribing to the channel and stay tuned for more quality uploads.